Continuamos en el D'Addario Guitar Plus Festival, primer festival internacional online de guitarra y mucho más. A continuación disfrutaremos de una gran masterclass del maestro Greg Howe, llamada Trucos simples para una buena selección de notas. Si bien en esta clase de Zoom no podrás encender la cámara o micrófono, podrás enviar tus preguntas al maestro en el botón de preguntas y respuestas que tienes abajo en tu pantalla. Las mismas serán respondidas al final de la clase o cuando el maestro lo considere oportuno. Puedes dejar tu pregunta en español y estaremos traduciéndola al maestro para ti y él podrá respondértela. Para mejorar tu experiencia, recomendamos usar auriculares. Recuerda que hoy en la clase de herramientas creativas estaremos realizando importantes sorteos de productos D'Addario entre los presentes. Puedes chequear en la página web del festival la agenda y horarios de todo el festival. Visita festivaldaddario.com/guitarra. Para introducir al maestro Greg Howe, les comparto esta breve reseña. Nacido en Pensilvania, Estados Unidos, Greg en los 80 trajo una fusión de funk y groove que marcaba una interesante propuesta entre los guitarristas virtuosos. Howe en aquellos años comenzaba su viaje en el circuito de clubs junto a su banda. Sus demos instrumentales rápidamente despertaron el interés del sello Sharpnel en 1987. Para su álbum debut instrumental, el cual lleva su nombre, convoca figuras como Billy Sheehan. En los siguientes años graba colaborando en distintos proyectos junto a grandes figuras entre los que se encuentran Michael Jackson, NSYNC, Laura Pausini y muchos más, como así también junto a su compañero de sello Richie Kotzen. Con ustedes, el maestro Greg Howe.
Hello, hello.
Hola, maestro. Hello, you are on.
All right, there we go. Very cool. These are always strange because I can't see anybody. So I'm saying hi to people that I can't see.
You can open the chat the chat room.
Yep.
There, so you can read everybody saying hi, hello.
Gotcha.
From Peru, from everywhere. So you can like have a kind of feedback.
Very nice.
Mexico, Ecuador, Chile.
Very cool. Hello, hello, everybody.
Can you read it?
All right.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So I'm going to talk a little bit today about something that was really big and changed my whole perception of the guitar and how I navigate the guitar and how I see the guitar and really how I see music in general and the way that I write and everything. There was a big thing that happened to me years ago that changed my whole perspective about really the fretboard and how I see it. And so I'm just going to talk about that a little bit. So I don't know if I should wait for somebody to translate. Or
yes, great. Here, Sebastian, I'm going to translate. So
okay.
That's great. You can, speaking like in blocks, so I can translate.
Sure.
El maestro va a hablar a continuación de algo que le sucedió hace unos años y cambió completamente su perspectiva y la manera en la cual él ve el diapasón de su guitarra.
So, when I was young, I used to play the way that most people play. I mean, I did what most people did, which is that I'd hear music and I had a pretty good ear and I didn't really know that much about theory or anything, but I had a good enough ear to be able to tell when I was playing the right pentatonic notes in the song. If a song sounded like this, I knew that meant I could come up here, I'd find it with my ear, and then I could play things like. So I kind of knew that, and I didn't really know exactly what I was doing, but I knew that these notes were the correct notes. And really, that was.
Cuando era joven, excuse me, can I translate that? Okay, cuando era joven, yo no sabía qué estaba haciendo, pero tenía una muy buena intuición para saber que una canción estaba en una pentatónica determinada y yo podía encontrar la nota que quedaba perfecto en esa pentatónica simplemente con mi intuición y con mi oído.
And I would always be listening to other types of guitar players. So I was very influenced by rock. I was a rock player. I still am a rock player. And I started with, Jimmy Page. Like I was starting to listen to people like John Scofield and Pat Metheny, and then eventually like Scott Henderson and Larry Carlton. And I kept noticing that there was something that they were doing on the guitar with their phrasing and with their note selection that sounded a lot different than what I was doing. And it was very hard for me to pinpoint or locate exactly what that difference was. And today I want to talk about what I finally discovered that was the difference, and it really changed everything. And to this day, it's still a huge part of my approach to soloing and my approach to improvisation and to composition. So maybe you can talk about
Al principio yo comencé tocando rock, de hecho me sigo considerando un guitarrista de rock, y chequeando a mis influencias primarias como cualquier guitarrista de rock, luego descubrí a otro tipo de guitarristas como Scott Henderson, Larry Carlton y todos los que acaba de nombrar, y sentía que tenían una sensibilidad diferente a aquellos que yo chequeaba al principio, a mis guitarristas de rock. Sabía que había algo que unía a ambos, pero no sabía qué era lo que unía esos dos mundos, el rock y este tipo de guitarrista.
So as I started to learn a little bit more about music theory, I started to understand that all scales in, all the sort of Western modes were related to one another. And so if I had this scale, we would call that the Dorian mode, or we'd call that a minor scale, a particular type of minor scale for A. And I knew after a while that meant those are the same notes that I'm playing if I play Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do, and G. So I knew that those scales were related, and then I started to figure out all of the modes, and that was a good starting point. A lot of guys figure that out, and they realize, okay, here's another scale, the same notes in it, and so
Nos está mostrando distintas escalas. Y
Sí,
sabía que
perdón.
lo que está diciendo... Perdón, vos, Beto.
Disculpame. Quería decirles que en ese Dorian mode, en La menor, descubre el maestro que es lo mismo que si está tocando do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, pero en sol. Adelante, Tano.
Okay, so that made my brain start to operate a little bit, because I started to then learn a little bit more about chords, and I started to understand that a chord was really comprised of every other note of a scale. Like a G major chord was really every other note of a G major scale, 1, 3, 5, and 7. Or I could play that together and get a chord that sounds like that. And then that led to me understanding that if I played all the starting points of that chord to the next interval, I would end up getting all the harmonized chords that are diatonic to that key. So the reason that this is important is because if I had a song that's in A minor, like I'll just play something for a second, just a regular A minor groove, kind of a funk groove. So in the old days, I would have been playing these notes.
Vos, Beto.
So that's the old way that I used to play when I was younger.
Lo que el maestro, Greg Howe, nos está diciendo es que esas notas del acorde de sol mayor, básicamente en esas tonalidades del modo donde encuentra la nota 1, la 3, la 5 y la 7, desde ahí puede utilizarlo como para comenzar haciendo diatónicos, haciendo otros intervalos en la menor. Entonces, por ejemplo, lo que acaba de tocar el maestro justamente se dispara un track que está en la menor y empieza a tocar improvisando justamente con esos intervalos que acaba de mencionar.
Right. So then my brain started to work, and I started to think, well, if G major is the same thing as A Dorian, and G major brings with it all of these diatonic chords and so forth, then if I play every one of those chords with the notes separately, meaning that instead of playing a G major 7th chord, I'll play a G major 7th arpeggio, then that means that arpeggio, this is my brain, 30 years ago thinking, that means that this arpeggio should work over this chord. I'm sorry. And it did. It was kind of interesting. I thought, suddenly I was playing notes that I wouldn't have thought to play myself. I wouldn't hear that automatically. But I liked the sound of it because it was a lot more colorful and a lot more, a lot less predictable sounding. So I started experimenting with just playing these chords in the form of arpeggios over A minor, just to see what would happen. Instead of always playing this, instead, now I'm starting to play things like this. And this is me experimenting back then. So here I go, G major. A minor, of course, no, we know that's nice. That's the same thing as pentatonic. B minor. C major. D7, D dominant 7. E minor. The minor 7 flat 5 on F sharp. So C major, E, F sharp, G major, B, and so forth. So that was really different for me back then. That suddenly I discovered a new, sort of a new concept on the guitar that prior to that I didn't know anything about, and it was it really completely opened up brand new doors that I had never walked through before that. So maybe, I don't know if you want to translate that.
Yes. Yeah, let me try to translate this. Al maestro Brett Howe empezó a sonar en la cabeza, empezó a pensar en estas relaciones entre, por ejemplo, el sol mayor, y descubre que se arma algo bastante interesante en el acorde, en la relación entre el acorde de sol mayor con el modo dórico de sol. Entonces, en un principio el maestro empezó a tocar esos acordes diatónicos y a la vez empieza a improvisar en sol mayor séptima, en ese arpegio, y se da cuenta que funciona muy bien. Justamente hizo como un tapping, lo van a ver, esto va a quedar grabado en el video también en YouTube, van a ver que justamente mientras está tocando el sol mayor séptimo está haciendo un tapping con la mano derecha, y está haciendo una escala de la menor. Y últimamente, lo último que estuvo haciendo el maestro fue arrancar de una pentatónica en si menor y fue pasando a distintas tonalidades, a do mayor, de ahí fue a re séptima, de re séptima fue a mi menor, de la sostenido menor séptima a do mayor, de do mayor fue a mi, a fa sostenido, a sol mayor y finalmente así. O sea, fue básicamente haciendo todo un pasaje de modos partiendo de una premisa que es el acorde de sol mayor.
Okay, so really, in short, we would just basically say that I had discovered superimposing, that is, putting chords on top of other chords to expand the sound of them. You know, if I was sitting in a room with one of you guys and I played an A minor chord, an A minor triad, and then somebody else played maybe an E minor triad at the same time, then together that sound would be something like this. So the idea is that, you know, arpeggios existed way before. You know, when I was young, I used to think Yngwie Malmsteen invented, you know, arpeggios. But what he did is he just sort of figured out a way to play them really fast and really impressive. But he's never really superimposing them. He's playing A minor, the band's playing A minor, and then he's playing more A minor over here. But people for years had been playing arpeggios or notes against chords to get color, to get more color. So basically that's what I discovered, really superimposing chords over other chords and playing individual notes so it sounds more like soloing or more like playing lines. So that's just I just wanted to kind of summarize my discovery. Was really I had inadvertently discovered superimposing.
Ya. El maestro lo que está diciendo es que cuando era joven empieza a hacer todos estos descubrimientos, básicamente partiendo de esa premisa de poner acordes por encima de otros acordes. Dio el ejemplo, por ejemplo, de un la menor con el arpegio de mi menor. A la vez también muy influenciado por Yngwie Malmsteen y sus arpegios, es como que ponía de repente notas contra acordes. Y así fue básicamente haciendo todos esos descubrimientos que terminan llevándolo a todos esos pasajes de la teoría musical que mencionaba al principio.
Okay, cool. So this is also, I guess one of the things about this is that it's not just the arpeggios and the discovery of superimposing, but it was discovery of this particular format of arpeggio, which is very easy to play, very comfortable, very logical for the fingers, and very easy to, I guess, what's the word, to sort of translate into lines. You know, use the arpeggio as a skeleton to form more, you know, better sentences with. In other words, if I'm playing over this, I don't just want to go like this. That's pretty boring. That's a pretty boring thing to do. You can do it once in a while. But what you can do is you can take, if you like the sound of that, I mean, first of all, I have to ask myself, why do I like the sound of this? The sound of that arpeggio over this chord is because it's got this B in it, so it's really bringing the whole sound of a minor 9 to the party, right? The whole thing sounds like that now. And that's because of the notes that I'm using. So I'm using this arpeggio to create that sound. But
lo que el maestro está diciendo es que no se trata solamente de los arpegios, sino que esos arpegios nos va llevando de alguna manera más fácil a traducir eso a una línea musical. Si de pronto nos fijamos en un solo en el cual se están tocando solamente las notas del arpegio, se torna demasiado aburrido. Entonces trata de incorporar otros elementos, como por ejemplo recién estaba incorporando una novena menor.
Right. So the nice thing about this particular format, I'm going to just go through it slowly because then we can modify these and turn them really easily into licks. So let's say I'll just use the E minor shape for a second. So all of the arpeggios have the same format. Actually, I'll just start with G major since that's the key that we're in. So we're going to run through the chord scale of G major. I'll play them nice and slow. And a lot of you guys, you already know these shapes, but we're going to do some different things with them. So basically, they're all fifth string root based. They all start at the fifth string. There's always two notes on the fifth string, one on the D. So in this case, 10, 14, 12. And then on the G string, we have two again. So 10, 14, 12, 10, or 11, 12. So then one note on the B string, and then two on the high E. So it's 2, 1, 2. So that's the arpeggio. You can actually get if you want to go up to the octave. But that's the shape, right? That's the basic format. It's always going to be the same with all the arpeggios. Two notes on the fifth string, one on the D, two on the G, one on the B, and then two, or possibly three, if you want to jump up to the other octave and get that. So that's the format. All of the arpeggios have that. A minor would be the same exact format, slightly different shape. I'll just play it slowly. Same exact format. B minor, same exact thing as A minor. C major, same as the G major. D dominant seventh is the first time we have something different, right? So we finally have a different shape. Everything has been major and minor up to this point. Now we have dominant seventh, which is just like major, except we drop that seventh down one fret. So it's the same. It'll feel if you're good at major seventh, it'll feel just the same. So dominant seventh, and then another minor, and then minor 7 flat 5 is the other one. So we have 4 total shapes, and this one is like minor but flat 5. So in this case, 9, 12, and then 10 on the next string, then 9 and 11, and then 10, and then or. Depending on what you want to do. So anyway, that's the whole chord scale. I just played through that in the form of arpeggios. And there's really only 4 shapes, and they're not hard. They're not that difficult compared to a lot of other things. I think that these are easier to use than triad arpeggios because you have more than one note per string. Triad arpeggios often are like almost all one note per string, so it's a lot more difficult to control them, and they don't sound as colorful to me.
Okay, Greg. Let me just explain, just briefly. El maestro básicamente empezó en una raíz en sol mayor, utilizando, digamos, pulsando los trastes primero 10, 11, 12, después en el 10. 10, 14, 12, después 10, 11, 12, 2, 1, 2, y así fue recorriendo con ese mismo shape o con esa misma forma, diferentes tonalidades, pero con la misma forma. Y así abordó, por ejemplo, si menor, re menor, dominante, re dominante séptima, re séptima bemol quinta, pero ahora está diciendo que también él descubrió que hay básicamente de esos arpegios salieron como 4 distintas formas. Greg, could you explain the 4 shapes that you mentioned?
Yes.
More in detail?
Absolutely. So the 4 shapes would be major, minor, dominant seventh, and then half diminished or minor 7 flat 5. So major, I'll do them all 4 shapes from one place just so we can see what they look like.
Ahora va el mayor, el formato mayor.
Right, so I'll play everything from E just so we can see it. So major for E would go. I'll play it real slow. Major third. That's our fifth. That's our major seventh to the root again. There's our third again. Fifth, 5, 7, root. So that's the major shape.
Mi mayor.
Should I do it real slow? Should I do it slower, real slow?
Yeah.
So that's major seventh. Major, as jazz players would just say major, and
Mi mayor séptimo.
rock players would say major seventh.
Mhm.
Minor is the same format, but we flatten the third. So we have this, and we flatten the third on the G string.
Con la tercera bemol logramos el menor.
So minor is this in slow motion. Again, this, if you don't want to reach up to that, you slide up to it. You don't have to play it at all. You can just go. So there's no way to do this. It's just the basic shape, right? So that's the minor shape. Dominant seventh is like the major. First 3 notes are the same, but the seventh is no longer major; it's flatted, right? So it's a dominant seventh, flat 7 with a major third, and then the whole.
En el séptima dominante, las 3 primeras notas van a ser igual que en el mayor, pero en la cuarta, ahí es donde tocamos la séptima.
And I'll just play through that one real slow. That's the dominant seventh. And then the last one is the minor 7 with a flatted fifth, or minor 7 flat 5, and that's that just looks like this. So that's minor 7 flat 5. Once again, slow. So those are the 4 basic shapes.
Yeah, esos son los 4, las 4 formas básicas. La última que tocó sería la séptima menor bemol. Esos 4 formatos. Básicamente sería el séptima mayor, menor, séptima dominante y séptima menor bemol.
Okay, so, but again, it's, I was playing them diatonically because we have to, we have to use the right ones in the right spot if we're going to play stuff that sounds cool. One of the things that's really cool to do if most of the students that I have are people that have been playing for a while, and they have good chops, they've got a good sense of, they've got good ears, they got good vibrato, and that they're good players, but it's a lot of pentatonics, and they're looking to go to the next place. They're looking for something else to do to expand that sound a little bit. And so every time I get with one of these, a new student like that, this is the first thing we do. And almost immediately they can apply this, because one of the things that you can do right away is always know that wherever there's a blues box, if you're in the key of A minor, which we've been in, we like that key, we're guitar players. Wherever that blues box is located, 2 frets down towards the headstock, you can always play major seventh arpeggio. You can always use that shape. And you can always use the minor seventh 2 frets towards the body of the guitar, right? Does that make sense to you?
Yep.
All right, cool.
Lo que dice el maestro es que en su gira comúnmente ve a un montón de gente que se le acerca, obviamente guitarristas, y ve que hay muchísimos que están ahí como bastante quedados en solamente las escalas pentatónicas. Pero de pronto el consejo que él da es ir justamente a estas 4 formas que nos acaba de enseñar, y comienza, por ejemplo, con una séptima mayor, en el arpegio de la séptima mayor, buscándolo 2 trastes un poquito más arriba, después abordando la séptima menor, el arpegio de séptima menor, y así va. De esa manera es como que va como moviendo la mente, no solamente la de él, sino también de la audiencia, a buscar otro tipo de tonalidades, otro tipo de modalidades.
Cool. All right. So the next phase, so basically the reason I wanted to point that out is because it's so easy to navigate just between those 2 shapes. I mean, if this is new to you guys, and so I know that many of you out there are much more advanced, so this is probably really boring, but to guys who are just getting into this or looking for new ideas, one of the very first things you can do is see this G string as like the train tracks, the transportation place that gets you from station to station, right? We have all these different stations. We have A minor, we have E minor, minor 7 flat 5, B, C, all these different places where we can stop and get off the train tracks. And we have the blues box. So notice, like, I can just play regular, normal pentatonic kinds of lines, jump down a fret, and then consider myself in the middle of this arpeggio. So same thing with the other arpeggio. I can blues lick, classic blues lick, maybe slide up on the G string and descend on E minor, right? Or maybe ascend. Same thing here. So it's just easy. I'm just trying to show you how easy it is to work these in, because we don't have to always start from the lowest note or the highest note. We can start in the middle, and in a way that sort of helps disguise it a little bit. It doesn't sound so scholastic, right? It doesn't sound so much like an exercise. So I really enjoy that. These are simple maneuvers. Like if I play this now, play an A note, now I'll play C major 7th arpeggio. And maybe I'll just do a simple move like this. And then slide into my blues box. So, right, so it's really easy to just sort of combine them together. I could do the same thing here. I could play E minor ascending this far and then jump right into blues. So I don't know if that's making sense. I'm trying to make it make sense, but
lo que el maestro acaba de mostrar aquí recién, thank you, Greg, es básicamente arrancando por la mitad del mástil en nota simple en la, y a partir de ahí empieza en el arpegio, de ahí salta a la escala de blues pentatónica, y después el último que hizo fue en mi, ascendiendo, y de ahí, de ese arpegio de mi, saliendo a la escala de blues. Básicamente son formas de no sonar aburrido, decía al principio de este último segmento, donde, por ejemplo, empezó tocando en do, de ahí pasó mejor dicho, a la nota do en la cuerda tercera, que es sol, y de ahí empezó a los diferentes arpegios, en la, en mi, en si, en do. De ahí salía a la pentatónica de blues, de ahí volvía a saltar al arpegio, y lo mismo en el último ejemplo que acaba de mencionar recién, tanto en la como después cuando fue a mi.
So, the very first thing so I think that's a great way to start, is to just sort of combine those two arpeggios with blues. I'll just do it a little bit because both of these arpeggios highlight the ninth note of the scale. They both highlight this note, right? So they both give that color. And you could just sort of try things like this. Blues descending on a blues scale, and slide up. Maybe I'll ascend on E minor, and then slide down into the blues box. Here's E minor descending, blues, and another slide, descend more with the C major 7. So E minor, blues, C major. So it's just a lot of the same stuff over and over again, but it's a good place to start, I think.
Yeah. El maestro dice que esta es una muy buena manera de empezar aplicando estos conceptos. Arrancó, por ejemplo, en la escala de mi menor, ascendiendo, y de ahí saltó a la escala de blues. Y después lo mismo, pero descendiendo, en la misma tonalidad, en mi menor, también saltando a la escala de blues, y de ahí pasó a do mayor séptima, para después volver otra vez a saltar en la escala de blues.
So the next phase is to try to do this. This is a really fun thing to do. When you get a little bit more comfortable with the arpeggios, or if you're already comfortable with them, try to sort of see these things in two separate tiers, two separate sections. Like we have the lower tier and then the upper tier. And because the reason I say that is because you can kind of combine different arpeggios together by combining different tiers. So I could do something like this, where I start very inside the tonality with like A minor. Very inside sound, very pentatonic. But then I can end by sliding on that, taking the train tracks on that G string, and maybe and then completing my idea with the ascend on this arpeggio, which is G major. So it gets a little bit more colorful as the lick goes on. This is very inside. And that's a very easy move, right? The fingers don't have a problem with that, really. I could play something like this, where I just give it a little bit of personality. And then walk into the G major. So A minor, little personality, slide into G major, upper tier, And we get that color. Because now we're highlighting not just the 9, but we're highlighting the 6th or the 13 as well. So that's a very colorful arpeggio to use in this context.
El maestro aquí, partiendo en el traste 12, en la octava, en La, va de ahí a la escala estando en la escala de La menor, utiliza dos distintos niveles de solo, yendo desde arriba hacia abajo, de abajo hacia arriba, y después se cuelga en la nota, en la cuerda de sol, ascendiendo a sol mayor, combinando ahí esos mismos arpegios.
So yeah, so this is just, so I'm going to just do a little bit of this where in slow motion, I'll play some ideas, A minor, in my little legato sort of filler, and then maybe I'll walk into B minor, right? That's a really nice sound, right? Or I could even play. So basically what I'm doing is I went B minor, descended on some scales, I'll send it again on A minor, this time dip down into G major. Play some scales, E minor, blues, into the C major. So the possibilities are, you can almost make it up as you go along, because this little trick with the G string is so convenient that it really doesn't, it's just, all this stuff is so much easier than you would think it is. It's really not difficult at all. And it's just a simple way. When I started to see the fretboard this way, not only did my guitar playing start to sound better, but it actually got easier because it was compartmentalized in a way where visually it wasn't just a bunch of 3-note per string scales anymore. It was some very specific shapes that represented very specific sounds.
Lo que dice el maestro es que ese es un truco bastante interesante. Cuando justamente hizo ese truco ahí ese yeite en la cuerda sol, combinando a la vez esos ligados que hizo en mi menor, ascendiendo a la menor, de ahí pasando a sol mayor, de ahí a mi, de ahí a la escala de blues, después a do mayor, y eso lo hizo visualizar las posibilidades de una manera muchísimo más amplia, ya no quedándose en esos compartimentos donde solamente al diapasón se lo ve en 3 dimensiones, sino de una manera mucho más rica, mucho más de muchísimas más posibilidades.
So let's get a couple of ideas here that are, I call this disguising the arpeggios, right? We don't want to sound like we're just playing arpeggios, but we want all the benefits that the arpeggios offer. Like, so if I like this sound, but I don't want to play an arpeggio, how can I get that sound and utilize the shape, but not play an arpeggio exactly? Well, here's a simple idea, especially with this format of arpeggio. So let's go to E minor. And all I'm going to do is play the E minor arpeggio, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this first. I'm going to just go like this. I'm just putting an intro. That's all I did, just simple little 3-note thing. It could have been anything. It could have been this. But I'm just going to do the simple 3-note intro. And then I'm going to play the arpeggio. So now we have the arpeggio. So it already takes that blatant arpeggio quality out of it a little bit. I can do the same thing on the G string, right? I'm going to add one note, diatonic note that's not part of the arpeggio, just like we did here. I'm doing the same thing here. And then I'll finish the arpeggio. So there's our midway intro, and then the arpeggio. So in slow motion, So it's kind of a nice fluid run that doesn't really sound like an arpeggio anymore. However, if we still like the sound of this over this chord, we still get to have that sound. We do the same thing on all the shapes. Minor 7 flat 5. I want to make sure that all makes sense, what I'm saying. Is that logical or am I?
Aquí en esta intro que comenzó el maestro Greg Howe, se da cuenta que en la cuerda de sol, o en la tercera cuerda, no ve que esa nota no es parte del arpegio, entonces vuelve a la intro y de ahí vuelve a retomar el arpegio.
Right, so we're just disguising these ideas. You know, if I did this, you can see what I did here, right? I went E minor with the disguise, but this time I shifted to the upper tier of minor 7 flat 5 from the F sharp. So this area of the F sharp, I went to after E. So here's E with the disguise. And then, however you want to descend, I could just play the arpeggio. But the idea is this. So we can do that anywhere. C major. I'm just really doing the same thing over and over again, combining lower sections of arpeggios to the upper tier of other arpeggios, and just creating nice harmony. I'm going to do it to music a little bit. Let me pick a different backing track.
Sí, aquí el maestro, bueno,
Go ahead.
básicamente estuvo explicando un poco arpegios partiendo de fa sostenido, después luego de do mayor. Ahora va a tocar un track y más o menos va a explicar esos mismos formatos que estuvo enseñando en forma práctica. Yeah.
So I'm going to just play to a Latin groove a little bit. I'm going to start off being very obvious with what I'm doing, and then I'll try to make it a little bit more interesting. And I'm just going to play for a minute because I want to show you. I want to show you another idea with these arpeggios that's really convenient.
Yeah, give me one sec. So, el maestro va a comenzar tocando una parte así de solo como bastante obvia y después va a tornar eso mismo en algo mucho más interesante. Yep.
All right, so you get the idea. You can see me. Hopefully, you can see me doing what I was talking about earlier. Hopefully.
El maestro espera que la audiencia más o menos le haya entendido lo que él está aplicando tocando sobre este track, soleando sobre este track.
So the other nice thing about this this format of arpeggio is that years ago, when I would actually still to this day, a lot of times when I'm working with students regarding phrasing, the thing that I find a lot of really rock players do a lot, rock influence players will do a lot, is they play a lot of things that are very downbeat oriented, right? So things that sound very, predictable a little bit, like. You know. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's cool sometimes, but it's also cool, in my opinion, to sometimes have things sound a little bit less downbeat oriented. Have a little bit of the sort of bebop influence where things don't sound so predictable.
Sí,
So
lo que dice el maestro, sorry, Greg,
Mhm.
lo que dice el maestro es que al principio justamente lo que estaba hablando es eso, cuando él comenzó a escuchar guitarristas tradicionales de rock, como los que nombró, bueno, se daba cuenta que en el modo eran un poco predecibles. Entonces, no está nada mal ser predecible, y es interesante lo que muchos de ellos tocan, pero también en su cabeza empezó a darse cuenta que se podía llegar a enriquecer muchísimo más la música utilizando esos formatos que el maestro nos enseñó. Thank you, Greg.
So where a typical example would be something like this. We use the classic blues box again, and a phrase that a rock players might play might be something like this, right? So if I take that. It's kind of predictable, right? Everything's divisible by 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3. So if I do that to music, it sounds a little bit predictable. It's cool. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's a little bit predictable. If I have a sequence that is not divisible by 4, like say maybe it's got 5 notes in it, like maybe something more like this, then I can start to sound a lot more interesting if I'm playing by counting to 4, but playing a sequence that's got something like 5 notes in it. So this has 5 notes in it. So when I count 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3, then it keeps moving. It keeps moving its position because I get to 4 before the sequence is over. So if I put that in a sequence going across this blues box, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E. It sounds a lot more interesting. Even if I'm not good at playing things on the upbeats, just by practicing a polyrhythmic sequence, it forces that to happen. So to me, this is a lot more interesting than this. So the reason I bring... Go ahead.
Yeah. Lo que el maestro está explicando es que partiendo de esa premisa de que los músicos suelen muchas veces utilizar escalas o expresiones bastante predecibles, donde se están tocando recién, por ejemplo, partió de lo que él llama el blue box, que sería básicamente la escala de blues, y donde se tocan absolutamente todas las notas. El maestro, con una, digamos, pulsación distinta, fue tocando una secuencia de 5 notas, y eso se da cuenta que está sonando bastante más interesante.
Okay, cool. So now let's take the same concept with these arpeggios. This was something I came up with, and it really worked with a lot of students. It really did. Like a lot of students who just had a hard time phrasing, by having that displaced sound or having more emphasis on the upbeats. People that had trouble with that, this really fixed it when they started to do this next sequence. So this exercise is really fun, and it's really helpful. And I'll show you how we can put it to use. I'm going to take the E minor 7th arpeggio. I'm just going to take the upper tier, so the 3rd string, the B string, and the high E string, and I'm going to play a sequence that goes like this. I'll play it real slow so you can see what it is.
Ok, ya, lo que dice el maestro es que aplicando exactamente ese concepto, pero a los arpegios, va a comenzar a tocar en mi menor séptima, y de ahí en la tercera cuerda, y en la segunda cuerda y en la primera cuerda va a ser toda una secuencia. Yep.
Cool. So I'm going to play a slow sequence. I'm going to play a sequence slowly. This has 7 notes in it, and it's fun to play. It's got some big intervals, and it's got string skipping, and it's not very difficult. So here's how it goes. So that's the beginning. And then we play this note that we skipped over, and we end with the lowest note and the highest note of that shape. So then we'll just play it slow. So if I play that and I hear this as 4, if I can, and the idea is that it's sort of like a drumming exercise. We want to be feeling the pulse of 4, but recognizing the shifting of these accents. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E. So that's the idea. And we can take that a step further. If I take the 7th note of that sequence and I alternate it between, say, this one and maybe this one, which is on the B string. So these 3 notes I'm going to alternate with the sequence. So you can just practice. It's a good exercise anyways. I'll slow it down a little bit. So that becomes a very trick, because if I'm playing along to music and I want to start using these arpeggios but not sound so typical, I can really take advantage of this, and I'll show you how to do that real quick. So, and I'll show you how to do that real quick. So here's a simple idea. Pentatonic scale. On 1 string. So I see that on my train tracks string, and I'm going to play a 5th above each one of these notes. And that's all I'm going to do for now. I'm just going to go. Now I'm going to do the same thing with octaves. Both of those things are really easy to do. Now I'm going to do something that's just as easy but sounds a lot more complicated, because I'm going to alternate the octave with the 5th. So I'm going to go. So that's kind of a cool way to sound confusing, even though it's really simple, because I'm just following a pentatonic scale and just alternating between the high E string and the B string. And
I'm sorry. El
Good.
maestro aquí está justamente tocando la escala pentatónica, pero alternando. Primero la quinta, después va la octava y después la octava con la quinta. O sea, está en la cuerda Si o en la segunda cuerda, básicamente haciendo en la misma cuerda esas alternancias de quinta, octava, octava, quinta. Thank you.
Mhm. So now what happens if we take this previous idea, right? So this is the, remember that can be applied to any shape. So here's the minor 7 flat 5 shape, right? With the major 7th shapes, a lot of times what I do is instead of playing, this fingering is kind of difficult, they're cumbersome, clumsy. So I change this note to the next note. So in other words, major 7th, if I were going to use that sequence in major 7th shapes, I would use this note. And basically, they all feel that easy. Now, let's say that I have this idea. Typical idea, right? Blues lick, play some typical phrase. Something like that, maybe. Now I'm going to move to a position, either up or down. It could be here. Either one. And maybe I'll play this just because it's, I know that it's always going to work, right? A fifth above this pentatonic notes always works. So maybe I'll just do this. And now I'm going to play my sequence. Maybe I'll play two of those with an alternate last note. And then I'll move to another. Maybe I'll play an octave and then the next position, then a fifth, and then maybe that lick again. So in other words, I can start to be very spontaneous about where and when I kick into this sequence. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay, so.
En esta demostración, el maestro está partiendo de buscando las notas que van bien en la escala pentatónica, y de esas notas que va encontrando, va pasando a lo que él nos mostró hoy, nos enseñó hoy, que es una secuencia en la cual pasa a buscar una octava, de la octava va a una quinta, de la quinta vuelve al sheite, pero todo de una manera bastante espontánea. El tema es lograr la espontaneidad, buscar la expresión y la espontaneidad.
Yeah, so I'm just going to play a little bit. I'm going to try to put all these ideas in there and see if a little bit. I'm not going to get too crazy, but just enough for you to see these working. And let's see what happens.
Aquí el maestro nos va a mostrar estas ideas.
I can't promise anything. It might be a disaster, but we're going to try. anyway, so that's just a sort of basic idea. Not great, but you can at least get the concept of what I'm doing. And it really makes for things sounding a lot more interesting than just, running up and down pentatonics or even just playing straight single note, linear scales. Because that can sometimes get a little bit old and tired sounding. So,
like boring, right?
A little bit boring. Right.
Aquí el maestro que lo dice es que de alguna manera espontánea, lo bueno es tratar de utilizar estos recursos como para tratar de no sonar tan predecible, tan aburrido, ¿no?
Cool. So one last thing, and this is not last thing, but this is another part of the sequential idea, and I just want to give you this really slow. This is I don't have tablature, but so I'll just play it really slow. And I guess if this is a video, you can always rewatch it or something. But this is a long sequence that's got 32 notes in it. And if you learn the sequence, it's applicable to all of the shapes. And this is why a lot of times when I'm playing, if I'm jamming out with one of my guitar player friends, a lot of times they'll say things to me like, geez, man, you never run out of licks. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm playing the same thing over and over and over again. But the thing is, if a sequence is only this long, 4 notes before it starts over again, then it's easy to recognize the sequence. But if you've got 32 notes in the sequence and it's a random sequence, no one notices that you keep playing it over and over again. So I'll give you an idea. I'll just show you the sequence. This is just one of many, but this is one that I use a lot. So I'm going to use the E minor shape again, and I'm going to just play it slowly. So here we go. So it starts with a triad, minor triad, and then we repeat the first 2 notes and we go right to the minor 7th. So skip over that D string. So, and then we're going to play this. This is a straight arpeggio, linear, straight up from G to G, right? So here's what we have so far. That's what we have so far. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4. So that's what's next. So let me just play that in with my foot tap a little bit.
Yeah, sorry, Greg. Sorry to interrupt you. Lo que el maestro está mostrándonos aquí ya es una secuencia bastante más larga y sería bueno poder aprenderla. De pronto, en una situación así de palomazo, como dicen en México, de zapada, como decimos en Argentina, si encontramos una secuencia, ya, por ejemplo, de 32 notas, ahora el maestro nos va a mostrar un ejemplo donde está partiendo de un mi menor, donde va la tríada, y de la tríada va a pasar por una séptima menor. De ahí va a ir linear de sol a sol, y va a terminar en el acorde. Thank you, Greg.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So let's here's what we have so far. So the next move after this is this. So that's the exercise that we did earlier. That's the 7-note sequence that comes right after that. So let's see what that sounds like. So it's kind of cool. And I'm actually going to play that twice. The second time using the B string version of the 7th tone instead of the 10th fret of the high E. So here's what we have so far. And then we're almost done. I'm going to play this note, the E note or the D note, and then skip over the D string I'm going to play this G and then this right afterwards. So it's a little confusing. Let me just play it from here. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 2 E and a 3. That's just a long random sounding sequence with a lot of intervallic interplay, but it's fun when you're jamming over stuff like this. Anyway, so you get the idea.
Sí, aquí justamente en este ejemplo el maestro nos está mostrando una larga secuencia de notas y jugando justamente con todos estos elementos que fue explicando durante toda su masterclass y cómo fue buscando desde una simple jeitte de blues a buscar la séptima nota en una larga secuencia de intervalos.
Very cool. So at this point, let me, if any of you guys have any questions, anybody wants to ask me anything.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of people that are, writing beautiful things about you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You have a great audience tonight. Yeah. Today for you, tonight for me.
Right.
Okay. First of all, a lot of people from South America, Peru, Argentina, Chile, Mexico, Venezuela, whatever, there's so many people.
Yes.
Let's see. Let me integrate
Hello?
Sebastian, yeah.
Okay, we do have one question here for you. Here says, what about hybrid picking? How do you recommend to start this technique?
Good question. I'll just give you a quick little history of my introduction to it. So back in the early 90s, right after I got my record deal with Mike Varney, a guy by the name of Michael Lee Firkins got a record deal. And he's a great, amazing guitar player. And when I heard him for the first time, I heard him over the phone because Mike Varney likes to play stuff over the phone for you. And I thought to myself, so he's a slide guitar. He sounded like a slide guitar player, but he had these really cool licks with the slide. And then Mike Varney revealed to me that he doesn't use a slide at all. He's just using a lot of whammy bars and a lot of fingers and stuff like that. Around the same time, there was a guitar player, and there still is, one of my favorite guitar players, a guy named Brett Garside from Australia. And he uses the pick along with these other fingers on his right hand. And I loved a lot of the stuff that he was doing. And then when I did an album with Richie Kotzen called Tilt, and we never got together for that album. So eventually we got together on the East Coast to do a photo shoot after all the recordings were done. And I remember I asked him about one of the licks on the album that I wrote. I don't remember what it was, but I said, "How do you play this? I'd like to see you play it in front of me." And when he started playing, he started using these fingers. So at that point, I thought to myself, everybody's starting to do this. I better get on board, because I wasn't doing any hybrid picking back then. So I really just started to, I didn't really have a system. I just started to work on things. And the main thing that I did was, I think probably the first thing I did was I said to myself, a typical, say, legato run like this, something like that, right? So that's a typical way that I used to play it. So I just started to say to myself, anything that's an upstroke, I would start to just replace it with my finger. So basically, when I do runs like that, I'm playing everything that this sequence happens a lot with my playing, where that move always happens, right? That's always going on, but it's going on fast, so it's happening, you know. So anytime I have that last note before I leave that string, that I make that a pluck or a hybrid pick. So that's probably where I started, and I didn't really have an exercise. I just started to become a little bit more aware of, just sort of saying to myself, don't use an upstroke there, use a pluck, use your finger. So that's one place to start. Another place was these.
Excuse me, Greg.
Go ahead.
Let me just explain a little bit.
Yeah.
Lo que el maestro estaba mostrando aquí es básicamente su técnica de púa o de plumilla o de pico, como lo llamen en distintos lugares en nuestra región. Es interesante lo que dice el maestro. En alguna situación así como de jam, descubrió que algunos de los colegas estaban tocando con púa, pero también tocaban con dedos, que básicamente eso es lo que estaba demostrando recién. Entonces, en algunos momentos, cuando tiene que utilizar como recurso alguno de los dedos para acompañar toda esa secuencia, el maestro lo aplica tranquilamente y es como que va ganando otro recurso más. Thank you, Greg.
Oh, my pleasure. Writing a little text to everybody. So I can't answer everyone's.
Yeah, that is hybrid too.
So the other thing that I do a lot, and this helped with hybrid picking, was I do this weird thing. I've done it for years, where I'll bar strings and then get a sequence. It's a 4-note sequence, or it's based on a 4-note sequence, where I might have something like this, right? Right. So you can see I'm hybrid picking that. I didn't used to get the sequence like this. So it used to be this with a pick. And that's okay, but I found that when I switched that upstroke to my finger, it got clearer and it got a little bit faster. So we always like to be faster as guitar players. So that particular exercise was really helpful, because it actually, I was already comfortable with that type of thing, but when the second finger got in there, it actually sounded better. I thought, even I'd been doing those things for years. So I don't know. So those two things helped a lot. Today, and then It is actually a really good question, because when I originally recorded a song, I did a song years ago called Jumpstart. And when I originally recorded that, I wasn't hybrid picking at all. I was doing this. And I remember that I hybrid pick. So I have to do this now. I don't remember how I could have done that without hybrid picking. So again, you could take maybe the exercise that we did earlier, and every single note that's not on the G string, every single note that's not here, make it a pluck. So I mean, so that's another way that you might want to practice that.
Sí, aquí de una técnica distinta, diferente que la que mostró al principio, si bien ahora últimamente la volvió a aplicar, pero notó que, por ejemplo, cuando tuvo que hacer el solo en uno de sus álbumes, todavía no conocía esa técnica de púa híbrida, donde está tocando con la púa y con los dedos, y todavía ni recuerda cómo hizo ese solo, pero de pronto ahora, cuando tiene que tocar esa canción, aplica esta técnica híbrida, y eso también lo hace tocar de una manera distinta, utilizando los dedos y la púa al mismo tiempo. Greg.
Yes.
Do you use a special treatment for your nails, or it is just your nails?
No, I don't use. In fact, I don't really use the nail that much. It's more the finger, just the fingertip.
So that's my question. It's more finger than nail, right?
I think so. Yeah. It is. It definitely is.
So yeah, are you like kind of muting a little bit the string, or yeah?
I think so, because when I don't do it, when I do things like this, I don't know. It feels like it gets clearer when I pluck. So yeah. I think I am muting a little bit.
Yep, I think so. Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you so much, Greg. Thank you very much. Well, you know, technically we have. I'm sorry to say that, but we have just 2 minutes. You know.
Okay, that's fine. You do one more question.
Yeah, I don't know if my team have the same opinion like me.
Well, I want to say that thank you all so much for coming. It's really been a pleasure, and I know there's a lot of great guitar players out there, so I hope I'm not boring you to death with this stuff, but hopefully it's been helpful. Or
for sure, I didn't know anything about the shapes that you mentioned, you know, and I think it's very, very useful, and it's not easy, because when some people say that, you know, that when they are watching at you, it looks like playing guitar is pretty easy, you know, but it's not.
That's an illusion. Trust me. Yeah.
Yeah. It takes time and hard work. Oh yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting, because sometimes I'll see myself playing it out, and it looks like it. I remember, like, that was really difficult. It doesn't look like I'm struggling, but I remember playing it, and I'll think, wow, if people only knew that I wasn't really having a good time right there. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Bueno, aquí el maestro realmente les agradece a todos ustedes. Espera, por lo menos para mí no fue aburrido para nada. Y le agradecí justamente todos estos conceptos que nos enseñó. And okay, Greg, we don't want to, to extend. I don't know if you wanted to share your sites, or maybe your next tour, or whatever you want to. We would love to have you in our region, very soon.
I would love to come down there. I want to come back down there so badly. Actually, right before all this stuff happened with COVID, we were working out a South American tour.
I know. in Colombia. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I know the guy that was supposed to open for you in Colombia, and Toma Vela. It was that guy. Yeah, and the people in Colombia, the promoters and everything. That, but you know, let's see if very soon you can resume that tour. And have you in Mexico and the whole South America. Very soon. I hope so. I really hope so.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, I look forward to it. I'll definitely keep you posted. I'll let you know. I have an album coming out this year. I have a book coming out this year, and hopefully I'll finally have some of my instructional video content up. I don't know if that's going to come out this year, and we don't have a tour lined up because I don't know what's going on still. My U.S. tour is set for next year in August. There's some talk about possibly doing some stuff in Europe in the beginning of next year, but I really don't know. It's very hard to make plans with all these things happening in the world that are so crazy right now.
Yeah, I know. El maestro dice que, bueno, hay videos que están produciendo, libro que está produciendo, el tour de él va a comenzar por agosto del 2022. Hay un montón de cosas que le gustaría hacer, pero como todos, es como que dependemos un poco de cómo se va moviendo la cosa. Así que espera encontrarse con todos ustedes muy pronto. Thank you very much, Greg. I really appreciate. Yeah, we learn a lot from you, and
great.
Yeah, you have an amazing spirit. God bless you. God bless your family. Keep you in good health always, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you all so much. You guys have been great, and thanks to Diodario and everybody involved in this. So.
Sí, muchas gracias a toda la gente de Dario. Y bueno, espera verlos pronto. Thank you so much.
All right, take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.